Imagine a city where, in the morning, a young woman in a business suit heads to the office. Her friend next to her adjusts her headscarf. European music drifts from an open cafe door. And a few seconds later, the call to prayer sounds over the rooftops. No one stops the flow of traffic. The ferry continues to cut through the water. Seagulls circle over the Bosphorus. People reply to messages and rush to work. And the strangest part begins 20 minutes later. You step off the same ferry onto a different continent. This is Turkey, a country that is too easily called a bridge between Europe and Asia and too difficult to understand after that beautiful phrase. Because the real bridge here runs not only across the strait, it runs through families, clothing, laws, prices, religion, women's careers, and the idea of what modern life should be. Today, we will see Turkey without two convenient masks. Not as an endless all-inclusive resort and not as a strict Muslim country where everyone lives by a single rule. We will step into Istanbul, where one street can look like Europe, while the next preserves the rhythm of the Ottoman Empire. We will figure out why Turkish women are not forced to choose between tradition and modernity, but still face unequal opportunities. We will see how inflation changes an ordinary breakfast, why an ancient sanctuary overturned the understanding of early societies, and what lies beneath the fairy tale valleys of Cappadocia. And closer to the end, we will answer the main question. Is Turkey really becoming Europe? Or does it simply know how to show every traveler the country they expect to see? The answer will turn out to be much more unexpected than the debate about headscarves, beaches, and skyscrapers. If you enjoy documentary travel, where a beautiful picture does not cancel out complex reality, subscribe to the channel. And now, let us begin with a topic that would make the brightest cover, but is almost always explained too simplistically. The women of Turkey can indeed shatter the first impression of someone who has never been here. In the center of Istanbul or Izmir, you will see students, doctors, designers, salespeople, teachers, female entrepreneurs, and office workers. Some wear a headscarf, some have short hair, some wear a long dress, some wear jeans. In a single subway car, these variations exist side by side and do not require an immediate explanation from those around them. There is no general law in Turkey that forces every woman to cover her hair, but it does not follow from this that clothing is always a free and neutral choice. It is influenced by family, neighborhood, generation, religiosity, work, and the local environment. In a secular district of a large city, one particular look will draw no attention. In a more conservative district, the same look may be perceived differently. The difference sometimes begins not between two countries, but between two neighboring streets. This is precisely why the phrase, "women live as in Europe," is both striking and misleading. How exactly do women live in Europe? In Berlin, a small village, a wealthy family, and a migrant family, conditions are also not the same. Turkey is even more complex because here, the secular reforms of the 20th century, Islamic culture, family expectations, and the modern labor market all exist within one society. The UN Women Country Profile for Turkey shows this duality better than any tourist photograph. Women participate in education, politics, business, and professional life, but the employment gap, unpaid domestic work, and the risk of violence remain real problems. This means that modern clothing and a university diploma do not yet guarantee equal freedom of choice. It seems to me that this is where the cheap plot about the beautiful women of a Muslim country ends. Appearance may attract viewers to a video, but it is a different story that holds them. How a person builds their own life in a society that is itself still deciding how far it is willing to change. One woman sees the headscarf as part of her faith and dignity. Another considers the right not to wear it as a matter of principle. A third does not want to be forced daily to take sides in someone else's dispute. All three are part of Turkey. The differences are also noticeable in family life. In big cities, the age of marriage is rising. Young people study longer, rent housing, try to build careers, and postpone having children. But the family still holds tremendous influence. Meeting the parents can mean a serious step, a A wedding often becomes an event for the extended family, and the decision to move to another city is discussed by more than just two people. At the same time, the Turkish family is not necessarily like the strict hierarchy from an old movie. A grandmother can be the most influential person in the house, adult children call their parents every day, and the family dinner table remains a place where matters of work, money, and relationships are decided. For some, such closeness provides support. For others, it turns into constant control. I would romanticize neither individualism nor family care. What is more important is to see the price of each arrangement. Freedom can mean loneliness, and care sometimes requires too much personal space. But why did such a conspicuous combination of secular and religious life arise at all in one Muslim country? The answer begins in 1923, when after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, the Turkish Republic was created. Mustafa Kemal Atatürk carried out sweeping reforms. He changed state institutions, the education system, the writing system, law, and the role of religion in public authority. The Turkish language began to be written in the Latin alphabet, and the state began to build a secular national model. These reforms did not destroy Islamic culture or turn the country into a copy of Western Europe. They created a tension that still defines politics and everyday life. For one part of society, secularism protects personal freedom and a modern state. For the other, it long looked like pressure on religious identity. In different periods, restrictions also affected women in headscarves, especially in state institutions and universities. Later, many of these restrictions were lifted. Therefore, the Turkey of today is not moving along a straight line from religion to Europe. It is arguing about how to combine faith, national history, and modern politics. The call to prayer is heard 5 times a day, but not every passerby goes to the mosque. During Ramadan, some people observe the fast, others continue their usual routine, and restaurants in tourist and major urban areas may be open during the day. Religious culture is visible, but the level of personal religiosity cannot be determined from a passport. For me, this is an important point. A tourist often looks for a rule that will help quickly classify the country. Muslim should mean one thing, secular another. Turkey refuses to be convenient. Here both words are true, but neither is a complete answer. Now, let us take a look at the map. Approximately 3% of the territory of Turkey is located in Europe, while the main part, Anatolia, lies in Asia. Between them run the Bosphorus, the Sea of Marmara, and the Dardanelles. This is not merely beautiful geography. For centuries, armies, merchant ships, grain, oil, ideas, and people moved through these waters. Control over the straits meant influence far beyond the city itself. The population indicator of the World Bank shows that approximately 85 million people live in Turkey. But this figure hides enormous differences. The way of life of a fisherman on the Black Sea, an entrepreneur in Istanbul, a farmer in central Anatolia, a family in the resort city of Antalya, and a resident of the southeast can differ so much that it seems as if one is dealing with several countries. Istanbul in and of itself is perceived as a separate world. It is not the capital of modern Turkey. The capital is located in Ankara, but it remains the largest city, the economic center, and the main visual symbol of the country. Millions of people live here, and every day an enormous flow of people moves between the European and Asian shores. The ferry ride across the Bosphorus seems like a tourist attraction only for the first few minutes. Then you begin to notice people with laptops, school children, vendors, pensioners, and passengers who do not even glance at the water. One person takes tea in a small glass, another feeds chunks of simit to the seagulls, and still another tries to catch a connection. For them, one of the most famous views in the entire world is simply an ordinary road home. On the official website of Istanbul Kart, the card is described as a single payment instrument for urban public transport. The metro, buses, trams, and ferries together form a system without which the metropolis simply could not move. And yet even this system does not eliminate traffic jams, long journeys, and fatigue. Istanbul can give a person a romantic sunset over the Bosphorus, and then an hour later make that person stand in overcrowded transport and count the minutes until they get home. I like this contrast because it returns to the city its human scale. Istanbul is not a museum that was built for the sake of beautiful shots. It works, it makes noise, it runs late, it becomes more expensive, and it is constantly being rebuilt. If you look only at the domes, you might fail to notice the people who are paying rent next to those domes. And it is precisely money that, today, is changing the everyday life of Turkey most forcefully. At the marketplace, a price can change more quickly than the habit of a customer. A family that until recently calmly bought its usual set of groceries begins to compare different shops, reduce non-essential purchases, and postpone large expenditures. The owner of a small cafe calculates rent, electricity, supplies, and wages. An employee receives a salary increase but does not always feel any richer because prices manage to rise first. According to the indicator of the World Bank, consumer inflation in Turkey amounted to about 58.5% in 2024 and about 34.9% in 2025. The slowdown looks like good news, but 34.9% still means a very rapid increase in prices. And most importantly, the statistical indicator does not return prices to their previous level. It only says that prices are growing more slowly than they were a year earlier. For a tourist, a weak lira can create the sensation of a bargain trip. For a person who receives a salary in liras and pays for housing, groceries, school, and transportation, the same situation looks different. It is especially difficult in Istanbul and popular coastal cities where high demand meets limited housing. Rent can consume a significant portion of income, and a young couple may live with their parents longer, not because of tradition, but because of mathematics. A car also easily turns from a symbol of freedom into an expensive project. Taxes, fuel, insurance, and maintenance increase the final cost. Imported goods are sensitive to currency exchange rates. A restaurant that a tourist considers affordable, a local resident may save for a special occasion. Therefore, the argument, is Turkey cheap or not, has no single answer. Cheap relative to what salary, what currency, and what city? I believe that economics is a mandatory part of honest travel. When a documentary shows only palaces, beaches, and breakfasts, it turns the country into a backdrop without inhabitants. The true beauty of Turkey does not disappear because of inflation, but it becomes clearer if we see the people who maintain hospitality not because life is easy, but sometimes despite its difficulty. And yet, Istanbul knows how to make you forget about spreadsheets. Just enter the historic district where the distance between different eras is measured in a few hundred steps. UNESCO, in its dossier on the historic areas of Istanbul, reminds us that the city was the capital of the Eastern Roman, then the Ottoman Empire, and preserved monuments that defined the architecture of a vast region. Here, history is not hidden under glass. It stands at a crossroads turned into a mosque, a palace, a market, a wall, or an underground cistern. The most powerful symbol is Hagia Sophia. It was built in the 6th century as a Christian cathedral. After the Ottoman conquest of Constantinople in 1453, it became a mosque. In the 20th century, it was turned into a museum, and in 2020, it again received the status of a mosque. Beneath the enormous dome, Christian mosaics coexist with Islamic calligraphy. Even the building's purpose changed, but each time it remained a center of debate about who owns the past. Opposite stands the Sultanate Mosque, known as the Blue Mosque. A bit further are the Topkapi Palace, where Ottoman sultans ruled the empire, the Grand Bazaar with its labyrinth of shopping arcades, and the Basilica Cistern, where columns reflect in dark water. These places are easily turned into a list of attractions, but another feeling is stronger. Vast empires have vanished, but the city adapted their space for new life. Around Hagia Sophia, tours take place, tickets are sold, people record videos, argue about entry rules, and search for the best angle. The sacred, the political, and the touristic exist simultaneously. It seems to me that this is Istanbul in miniature. It does not choose one version of itself, but forces them to share one space. But if you think that Turkish history begins with the Greeks, Romans, or Ottomans, Anatolia has prepared a real blow to the usual chronology. In the southeast of the country lies Göbekli Tepe. UNESCO, in its dossier, dates the monumental structures to the period roughly between 9,600 and 8,200 years before our era. This was a time when writing did not yet exist, and familiar cities and states had not even appeared. People erected massive T-shaped stone pillars, decorated with animal depictions, and created complex circular spaces. Why is this so important? For a long time, a convenient scheme seemed simple. People transitioned to agriculture, created permanent settlements, accumulated resources, and only after that began building large ritual structures. Göbekli Tepe forced researchers to look more carefully at the sequence. Perhaps shared rituals and the ability to gather around a symbolic place themselves helped form a more complex society. One should not call Göbekli Tepe, the first temple of humanity, as an indisputable promotional fact. Archaeology is more cautious than loud headlines, and the purpose of the structures continues to be debated. But even without absolutes, the scale is impressive. Thousands of years before the pyramids, people already knew how to organize labor, move heavy stone, create images, and maintain a collective design. For me, Göbekli Tepe changes not only the view of Turkey, it changes the view of ourselves. We are used to considering ancient people nearly helpless before the advent of technology. And then we see stone pillars that have outlived civilizations and realize imagination, ritual, and the desire to leave a mark appeared much earlier than the familiar world. From the southeast, let us move to central Anatolia, where history is hidden not only underground, but also inside the rocks themselves. Cappadocia looks as if nature spent many years preparing the set for a fantasy film. Volcanic material, wind, water, and temperature changes created valleys, cones, and stone pillars called fairy chimneys. In the morning, hot air balloons rise above them. It was precisely this image that became one of the country's main tourist symbols. But the balloons are only the top layer. UNESCO, in its description of the Göbekli National Park and the rock sites of Cappadocia, notes the carved sanctuaries, settlements, and underground spaces in the rock. People turned the soft tuff into homes, churches, warehouses, and entire fortified complexes. Frescoes in the rock-hewn churches preserve scenes from the Christian tradition, and the underground cities show how well-planned life could be without the familiar surface. Derinkuyu descends several levels underground. Narrow passageways, ventilation shafts, storage rooms, and heavy stone doors created a system of refuge. In popular retellings, it housed tens of thousands of people, but precise estimates vary. Far more important is the idea itself. A community could disappear from the surface and continue life inside a mountain. Today, the cave spaces have become hotels, restaurants, and tourist attractions. This generates income and simultaneously raises the question of preserving the fragile landscape. The more popular Cappadocia becomes, the more transportation, construction, hot air balloons, and pressure on the historical environment there is. A beautiful image does not exist separately from the infrastructure that sells it. It seems to me that a traveler must remember this cost. We love to say we are discovering hidden places, but millions of identical discoveries can change a place beyond recognition. Respect begins not with a ban on photography, but with the understanding that an ancient rock is not obligated to withstand an endless flow simply because it looks good on a screen. To the southwest lies another landscape easily mistaken for snow. Pamukkale is translated as Cotton Castle. The white travertine terraces were formed by mineral water that flowed down the slope and left deposits of calcium carbonate. In the sun, the pools turn blue and the white surface seems almost unreal. UNESCO, in its dossier on Hierapolis Pamukkale, examines the natural terraces together with the ruins of the ancient city. The Romans used the hot springs, baths, temples, a theater, and a large necropolis appeared nearby. The result is a rare combination. The landscape attracted people because of the water, and human history became part of the same site. Tourism here again requires restrictions. Some areas are off-limits for walking, access to the water is regulated, and photographs showing a person standing in an empty white pool do not show the queue off-camera. But even with people, Pamukkale remains a powerful spectacle. Water slowly builds the stone slope, while we try to fit this process into a short video. After stone and hot springs, Turkey abruptly changes the scenery. The Mediterranean and Aegean coasts offer beaches, bays, mountains, pine forests, ancient ruins, and cities living on tourism. Antalya is known for large resorts, Bodrum for white houses and nightlife, Fethiye for bays and routes along the shore. But the coast is not one long hotel. Behind the resort facade work cooks, drivers, cleaners, animators, shop owners, and seasonal workers. In summer, the city is overcrowded. In winter, the rhythm changes. Income depends on the season, the political situation, the currency, and how many travelers choose this particular shore. For a guest, the sea means relaxation. For a local family, it can mean several months of intense work that must pay for the entire year. And yet it is on the coast that it is especially noticeable why Turkey is called close to Europe. Open-air restaurants, beachwear, bars, yachts, and international languages create a familiar resort environment. A few hours' drive away, you can find yourself in a city where family and religious norms are noticeably more conservative. Both places are real. The mistake begins when one of them is declared to be the entire country. Now, it is time to sit down at the table. Because Turkish life cannot be understood if food remains only a beautiful transition between chapters. Turkish cuisine was formed at the crossroads of Anatolia, the Balkans, the Caucasus, the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and the Ottoman Palace. Therefore, the word kebab describes only a small part. There are soups, vegetable dishes with olive oil, dolma, manti, pide, lahmacun, fish, cheeses, olives, dozens of types of pastries, and regional ways of preparing meat. The street simit seems like a simple bun with sesame seeds, but in Istanbul, it works as a universal breakfast and snack. It is eaten on the go, taken on the ferry, served with cheese and tea. Balık ekmek combines fish and bread. Chestnuts are roasted right on the street. In the evening, shop windows are filled with baklava, kadayıf, and other desserts, where no one skimps on sweetness. The most important scene may not take place in a restaurant, but at a family breakfast, kahvaltı. Small plates with cheese, olives, tomatoes, cucumbers, eggs, honey, jam, bread, and pastries appear on the table. The food does not have to be luxurious. The duration is important. A person does not grab a single sandwich and disappear. The conversation becomes part of the meal. Turkish tea is poured into small tulip-shaped glasses. It appears in shops, offices, workshops, living rooms, and on ferries. Offering tea often means not just a drink, but an invitation to stay longer. Even a business conversation becomes softer when a hot glass sits between people. And Turkish coffee works differently. It is thick, strong, brewed with finely ground beans, and leaves sediment at the bottom of the cup. In a piece on the culture and tradition of Turkish coffee, UNESCO emphasizes not only the preparation method, but also its social role: hospitality, conversation, holidays, and rituals. Coffee is valued not because it is the strongest in the world, but because a whole form of communication is built around a small cup. After coffee, the cup is sometimes turned over, and people try to read the patterns left by the grounds. Some take this seriously, others treat it as a game. But even a game requires time and a companion. It seems to me that this hides an important difference between consumption and ritual. A drink can be consumed in 2 minutes, but a conversation cannot be sped up with a button. Hospitality is often called the main quality of Turks, and indeed a guest may be persistently offered food, tea, and help. But one should not turn millions of people into a single kind character. In tourist areas, one encounters genuine care, ordinary commerce, pushy offers, and attempts to make money. Politeness does not cancel the need to clarify the price, and a warm conversation does not make every service free. I support a respectful view of hospitality precisely because it does not require naivety. One can accept tea, talk, and at the same time understand boundaries. True respect works both ways. The traveler does not treat a person as a decoration, and the host does not see the guest only as a wallet. Now let us return to religion, but look at it through an ordinary day. On Fridays, there are more people around some mosques. During Ramadan, the evening iftar gathers families and friends. The holidays after the fast and the Feast of Sacrifice change the family calendar. At the same time, in Istanbul, Izmir, Antalya, and other cities, concerts, nightlife, and alcohol sales continue. Turkey produces wine and raka, although alcohol is subject to high taxes and attitudes toward it vary. On one street, a person leaves a mosque. On another, a group meets at a bar. Sometimes these worlds belong to different neighborhoods, sometimes to the same family. The older ones observe the fast, the younger ones do not. One person votes for a more religious policy, his sister defends a secular lifestyle. The family dinner will still take place. Such coexistence is not always peaceful. Issues of education, clothing, the role of religion, and political power provoke harsh debates. But everyday Turkey is sustained not only by agreement, it is sustained by the ability to continue living together after a dispute. For me, this is more important than the beautiful formula of a bridge between cultures. A bridge is not a place where differences disappear. It is a structure that withstands movement in both directions. However, there is a topic where tension is felt particularly strongly: migration and refugees. After the start of the war in Syria, Turkey took in millions of people, and the country long remained one of the largest host states. The UNHCR portal on the regional response to the Syrian crisis shows the scale of this system and its duration. Behind the dry data are families who left their homes, children who have already grown up in Turkey, and cities whose populations changed over several years. The early years were often accompanied by strong public sympathy. But the prolonged economic crisis, expensive rent, and competition in the labor market have increased irritation. Refugees are blamed for lower wages, rising prices, and strain on schools or hospitals. Some of these grievances are linked to real governance problems. Some become a convenient explanation for any difficulty. Here it is dangerous to choose too simple a moral answer. A local resident has the right to worry about jobs, housing, and safety. A refugee has the right not to be turned into the culprit of a crisis that did not begin by their will. The state is obliged to manage borders and at the same time uphold human dignity. These demands conflict, but the disappearance of any one of them will not solve the problem. It seems to me that a mature documentary narrative must sustain such complexity. Compassion for refugees does not require denying the tension. Support for one's own citizens does not justify humiliating people based on their origin. Turkey shows how difficult the humanitarian choice becomes when a temporary crisis lasts for years. There is also another side of the movement of people: tourism. Millions of travelers come for Istanbul, the sea, history, medical treatment, shopping, and food. Tourism brings foreign currency and jobs, but also increases the burden on cities, transport, water, and housing. In popular neighborhoods, apartments may go to short-term rentals, and a local resident ends up farther from the center. Therefore, a practical itinerary should be built not as a race for photos, but as a search for balance between openness and understanding the real life of the city. But as a sequence of different Turkeys, you can start with Istanbul and give it not one evening between flights, but several days. The European side will give the historical center, markets, museums, and a dense urban rhythm. The Asian side, residential neighborhoods, embankments, katakoi markets, and the feeling of a city where people live and not only receive tourists. The crossing itself on an ordinary ferry will already explain the country better than a long lecture. Then you can choose a direction. Central Anatolia leads to Cappadocia, the southwest to Pamukkale, Ephesus, and the Aegean coast. The Mediterranean coast to Antalya, mountains and bays. The southeast to ancient archaeology and a different cuisine, but requires a more careful check of current security and the route. Entry rules depend on citizenship and can change. On the official portal of Turkey's e-visa, you are directly offered to first select the country of the travel document and check the eligibility for an e-visa. This is more important than the universal promise everyone can get a visa in a few minutes. Before the trip, you need to separately check the validity of your passport, the conditions of stay, insurance, and the official recommendations specifically for your citizenship. The season also changes the country. In summer, the coast is hot and overcrowded, and Istanbul can be stuffy. Spring and autumn are often more comfortable for cities and archaeological sites. In winter, Cappadocia gets snow, hot air balloons depend on the weather, and the coast becomes quieter. There is no single ideal month for all of Turkey because the country is stretched between different seas, altitudes, and climatic zones. It is better to come to a mosque with clothing suitable for a religious space, take into account prayer times, and follow the rules of the specific place. In Hagia Sophia, the visiting procedure has changed, so you should check it immediately before your visit. At the market, it is useful to clarify the price before buying. In a restaurant, check whether the service is included. In a taxi, use official services and understand the route. These tips sound mundane, but they are exactly what separate a beautiful trip from a series of conflicts. And one more rule: do not try to understand all of Turkey in a week. Even the residents themselves argue about what to consider the real country. Istanbul will say one thing, Ankara another, Izmir a third, conservative Anatolia a fourth, and the resort coast will generally speak the international language of the season. Now let us return to the question from the beginning. Is Turkey a Muslim country where women live as they do in Europe? Yes, if we are talking about a specific woman in a specific district who studies, works, chooses clothes, travels, and builds a career in a secular urban environment. No, if this phrase is turned into a rule for everyone and Europe is used as the only scale of freedom, Turkish women do not live like someone. They live within their own history, where rights, religion, family, the economy, and personal choice constantly change the balance. Is Istanbul a European city? Yes, when you look at the cafes, galleries, transport, business, and nightlife. And no, if you forget about the minarets, Ottoman memory, the Asian shore, and family rituals. It is European and Asian not in turn, but simultaneously. Is Turkey modern? Its airports, industry, universities, digital services, and megacities leave no doubt. But modernity here has not erased Göbekli Tepe, Hagia Sophia, a family breakfast, prayer, and coffee with fortune-telling from the grounds. Moreover, it is precisely these old forms that help people endure prices and politics changing too quickly. Turkey is not an ideal bridge on which all cultures smile beautifully at each other. Sometimes this bridge is overloaded. On it, secular and religious citizens, local residents and new migrants argue, the tourist business and heritage defenders, young people and parents. But the movement does not stop. And perhaps the most accurate image of the country is not a palace and not a beach. It is an ordinary ferry on the Bosphorus. On board sit women in different clothing, students, workers, believers, tourists, vendors, and families. Someone is going from Europe to Asia, someone in the opposite direction. Everyone holds the same small glass of tea and looks at the city, which for 1,000 years has been changing names, authorities, and rules, but continues to live between the shores. It seems to me that this is exactly why Turkey makes you watch the story to the end. It does not confirm the stereotype and does not destroy it with one striking phrase. It shows that opposites may not be reconciled but can learn to exist side by side. The East here sometimes really does look like Europe, and Europe suddenly reminds us how much of the East has long since become part of its own history. If this episode helped you see Turkey as more complex than a tourist postcard, give a like and write in the comments which contrast surprised you the most. Women and traditions, two continents, ancient cities, the economy, or everyday life in Istanbul. Subscribe and turn on notifications. In the next journey, we will set off there again, where the real country turns out to be much more interesting than its most prominent headline.